Let's talk using Tailwind for your Pinterest marketing strategy in 2024. I'm Emily Bales. I'm a Pinterest marketing expert and coach. And for the past 5 years, I've helped my clients and my students increase their traffic and turn it into profit through the power of Pinterest marketing. So in this episode, I am going to be breaking down really the pros and some cons for using Tailwind for your Pinterest strategy. And I'm also going to be touching on a new option within Tailwind where you can actually publish or schedule your pins using the simplified pin format. So you might be wondering what in the world I am talking about when I refer to the simplified pin format, but we're going to break that down in the episode. And I'm also actually going to take you inside of my Tailwind account so you can see how you can utilize this new feature / update. So before we go any further, let's talk about what Tailwind is and why you would want to use it when you're marketing on Pinterest. So let's go ahead and state the obvious and say that obviously you are watching this video because you're interested in getting your products, your offers, your courses, your services out there through marketing them on Pinterest. And Pinterest is such a powerful platform, and I really love it for not just large businesses, but really small businesses, because 97% of searches are unbranded, which means that you have this amazing opportunity to be discovered by a new and really different audience than compared to social media, which most businesses are utilizing for marketing. And that's great, but I just want to say, don't sleep on Pinterest. Now, when you're thinking about using Pinterest, one huge piece of the puzzle will be consistency. Pinterest is a visual search engine. And whether I have students who are business owners and they're looking to DIY their Pinterest strategy, or I have students who are aspiring Pinterest managers and I'm teaching them how to manage Pinterest accounts for business owners, I always share with them that one huge part of marketing on Pinterest is patience, because since it is a search engine, it takes time to see results on the platform, especially for my Pinterest manager students when they are thinking about getting on discovery calls and really speaking with business owners and sharing how they can help them market on the platform. It's really important that that business owner understands that their services are so important, because that's going to allow them to be consistent. But I also want my students to be able to translate that transparency to business owners that this is going to take time. And I think that when business owners have proper expectations for what it entails and what it requires in order to see results, increase traffic, increase sales, it's going to take time. And I think that when everybody's on the same page as far as those expectations, then everybody is happier. So with that said, you're probably wondering, okay, you're talking about time. What does this mean for me? What should I expect? So when you're thinking about how long it's going to take, it could take 3 to 6 months. It could take more like 6 to 12 months. So personally for me, it took me around a year before I felt like I was really starting to get more traction as far as my pins. I started to see my monthly views go up, and really correlating with those monthly views go up, I saw my outbound clicks and my saves go up as well. I was really focused on my outbound clicks and my saves because those are definitely more important metrics than your monthly views. But obviously we want to see all of those stats go up. Now, as I'm talking about Pinterest metrics, if you are wanting more information specifically about what your monthly views mean, what outbound clicks are, what saves are, I do have another YouTube episode all about your Pinterest analytics, how to track them, how frequently you should really assess them. And I would love for you to check out that other YouTube episode. So I will make sure to link that in the description of this episode as well. So if you want to check that out, you can do that as well. So back to Pinterest and this consistency piece. If you want to see results, you have to be consistent. There's a few different ways that you can be consistent. You can hire a Pinterest manager, you can use a scheduler like Tailwind, or even both. So my Pinterest manager students, a lot of them do exactly what I did, and I actually require that my clients used Tailwind. because when we're thinking about scheduling out pins, there's really two different options. You can schedule them out natively on Pinterest, or you can use a tool/platform such as Tailwind. And one thing that's important to know is that yes, it can be, helpful to schedule them out on Pinterest and do that natively, and it is free, but you do have limitations that you don't have when you're using Tailwind. And so for me, it was kind of a no-brainer to utilize Tailwind. And I actually have had clients who felt very strongly about having pins both scheduled natively, that would be on Pinterest, and then also through Tailwind. And honestly, I've done quite a bit of split testing, not only for clients, but also myself. And I never noticed a large enough difference as far as pin performance and distribution in order for it to make sense to only utilize publishing natively on Pinterest, whether that be in real time or through using the scheduler. And I've done both, where I've used the Pinterest scheduler and I've, published in real time. And then I've obviously continued to utilize Tailwind. I really just didn't notice a big enough difference in order for it to make sense for me to spend more time doing that with the Pinterest scheduler compared to Tailwind. So if there was this huge difference, then of course I would use Pinterest and do that on the platform. But because there's not, it's so much easier and a lot more helpful to do so on Tailwind. So that's really my thoughts on it. And when you're thinking about those pros and cons, the first thing I always think about, is there a difference in the reach, the distribution, and really the results you're seeing? And like I said, I never saw a big enough difference where I felt that it was going to outweigh my feelings on Tailwind. So I did require that my clients use Tailwind, and if they wanted me to schedule on the platform, I would do that as well. And it was also good for me to test and try both, because that's really the only way you're going to know. And I just want to put it out there. There are so many different schools of thought, beliefs, strategies, tactics, such as how many boards you pin to, how frequently you pin, how many days or intervals you're using between when you schedule one pin to the first board to the second board. And honestly, it can be a little exhausting. And I think that's one reason why people feel sometimes tired or worn out by marketing on Pinterest, because there's so many different ideas and beliefs. And the thing is, what works for one person might not yield the exact same results for another person. That's why it's really important to understand the foundations. And then from there, you can test and tweak. So for example, if you are really wanting to test out if it makes more of a difference to schedule on Pinterest versus Tailwind, then do that. But you're going to need to give it some time. When we're going back to Pinterest takes time to see growth and results, that applies to testing as well. So if you want to test that, I would say give it at least 60 days. I don't think 30 days is quite enough time to really make a decision on, does this, more beneficial than this? I would say maybe even 90 days if it were me. And then you're going to just have that much more data to back up whatever decision you're making. So that's really my 2 cents. So when we're thinking about some of the pros and cons, and we're also thinking about those limitations, because I did mention that there are limitations, when you're scheduling natively on Pinterest, you can schedule out up to a month in advance. And Pinterest is always updating, changing, and evolving. And at one point, when you would schedule natively on Pinterest, you could only schedule a pin out up to 2 weeks in advance. Now it is up to 30 days. So I am recording this video on May 5th. And when I looked at the native scheduler today, I wanted to check that and see the most up-to-date information. And I did see that I could schedule out as far as June 3rd. So that's extended. It's really more like 4 weeks now rather than 2 weeks. So that is an update. But on Tailwind, you can schedule out multiple months in advance. Now, I'm not saying that you should schedule out your pins for the rest of the year, but that brings me to another really good point I want to make about using Tailwind versus Pinterest. I believe that some people don't see the best results from using the scheduler, whether it be Tailwind or some other scheduler, because it sometimes can encourage lazy pinning behavior and tactics where we just want to get it done. We don't want to have to think about it. And yes, it is nice that we can schedule out our content, but I know this is going to sound harsh, but I've said it again, or I've said it once and I'll say it again. Garbage in, garbage out. If you are not creating fresh content using a mixture of standard pins, video pins, having keyword optimized titles, descriptions, you don't have, captivating pins where you're capturing your audience's attention, you're repinning the same content over and over again, really lazy behaviors when it comes to marketing on Pinterest, then you're not going to see the best results with using a scheduler. So it's really important that you are following best practices such as creating fresh pins consistently, creating both standard and video pins, using keywords in the title, the description, the text overlay of the pin, having the correct pin dimensions. All of those things are going to be important if you want to see results on the platform. So as we continue to discuss the pros and the cons, like I mentioned before, some of the cons for Pinterest is it does have limitations. Another con with scheduling natively on Pinterest is that if you have a pin that is highly relevant to more than one board, meaning that that pin would make sense not just being pinned to one specific board on your account, but maybe 2 or 3, you can't schedule that pin out to multiple boards. It can only be scheduled out to one board. Whereas on Tailwind, you can schedule one pin out to multiple boards. And you also have the ability to use an interval feature, meaning that when you are scheduling that pin out to more than one board, you can make sure that there's multiple days in between when that pin went to the first board and the second board. So let's say I have a pin about how to become a Pinterest manager. That is highly relevant to my board on starting a Pinterest manager business, side hustles for moms, and work from home jobs. It's really relevant to all 3 of those boards. So what I would do when I am selecting what boards I'm going to pin that to, I would select the most highly relevant board first, which would probably be starting a Pinterest manager business, then the side hustles for moms, then the work from home jobs. And those 2 other boards could probably be switched as far as which one is more relevant. They're both very relevant. But when I am scheduling those out, I'm going to use an interval. I could use an interval of 10 days so that those pins aren't going out close together, because that's going to allow you to really slowly drip out that content. And it's okay to take one pin and pin it to more than one board, as long as you are slowly dripping out that content and making sure that you're not doing it on the same day or back-to-back days. So that is a totally fine thing to do, but you just don't even have that option when you are scheduling on Pinterest. So there's definitely some limitations. I want to mention too, I keep referring to Tailwind, obviously. I am a proud affiliate of Tailwind, but I only became an affiliate after I had literally used Tailwind for, I want to say I became an affiliate when I had been using it for at least 3.5 or 4 years, and I would require my clients use it, and I was not an affiliate at the time. It was just because that's what I used. That was my preferred tool and scheduler as a Pinterest manager. And a lot of times when people would come to me, they actually already had a Tailwind account anyways. But I just want to share that everything is from, even though I am an affiliate, it's really from an unbiased point of view, because I was using it for multiple years before I ever had that affiliation. And I only became an affiliate because it's a tool that I know and use and love. And it makes sense for me to share that with other people. And like I mentioned, because I really have tested it and I don't really see a difference, I just want to encourage people to really use any tool, even if it's not Tailwind, that's going to allow you to be consistent, because that is so important when you're thinking about seeing results on Pinterest. And I find that a lot of times people give up on Pinterest because they're not seeing the results they want, and they haven't given Pinterest enough time to really work its magic, because it is a search engine, and they sometimes maybe have these unrealistic expectations about how long it should take in order to see growth. And also, it does take some time. Yes, you can schedule it out. So I just find that Tailwind makes it so much easier to be consistent. And then when you're consistent, long term, you're going to see better results. So I do want to mention, if Tailwind isn't your jam, then you can use other schedulers for Pinterest as well. I know the most about Tailwind, so I'm not really able to speak on these other schedulers. I have used other schedulers before, but most of them I just wasn't really a fan. I find that Tailwind is also really user-friendly. So yeah, I love it. If you can't tell. I did want to mention though, I am going to kind of pivot here, and what we're going to do now is we are going to start to unpack the simplified pin format, because that is really an update that has changed in regards to Tailwind. And I love that Tailwind, not only is it an approved partner of Pinterest, and side note, when you're thinking about schedulers, you do need to find one that is an approved partner of Pinterest. That is definitely mandatory, but they really stay up to date with the changes that Pinterest is making, which is huge. So without further ado, what we are going to do is we are going to check out the simplified pin format and see how that can help your Pinterest strategy. Here we are inside Pinterest, and we are going to take a look at Tailwind in just 1 minute. But what I wanted to share was just a little bit of an update on what these simplified pins are, what this means, and why we need to understand this when we are scheduling our pins out on Tailwind. So just for a little bit of background, this is not new information. Pinterest actually announced this last year, but essentially Pinterest rolled out story pins, and then they were renamed idea pins. And people had, and when I say people, I mean business owners, content creators, people marketing on Pinterest, they had kind of some issues with this new pin format. They were being really prioritized as far as distribution, and we were finding that they performed a lot better compared to standard pins or even video pins. But the big pain point with them was that they weren't linkable. And so that means that we couldn't associate or attach a link to that specific pin format. And in some ways it was frustrating for business owners, because that's really the whole reason they're using Pinterest, is to drive traffic to their products, their offers, their lead magnets, their podcasts. And we weren't able to do that. And yes, we were getting more followers and building other aspects of our Pinterest presence. But really what we want to do is we want people to leave Pinterest to learn more about what it is that we're offering. However, Pinterest, after a bit of time, they did listen to us, and they eventually added a link to idea pins. But quickly after that, they really pivoted, and they announced that they were essentially doing away with idea pins, and instead they were just going to have pins. And you can think of it as this umbrella that was really all encompassing all pin formats. So we weren't having all these individual pin formats, such as standard pins, video pins, idea pins. So it was really making it simplified, hence the name, the simplified pin format. So I wanted to show you this on Pinterest because I think that it really breaks down the changes, and I will make sure to include this link within the episode description. So if you're actually wanting to visit this page on Pinterest, you can. This is information provided from their site, but I think that I love how it gives the visual really description of like the changes that are happening, and I think it helps us wrap our mind around it. And so instead of me sitting on this episode and explaining it to you, I love as much as possible for me to visually show the differences, what this looks like, because I think it just makes it easier to understand. So we have this old format where when we'd go to our Pinterest account and we'd click a plus sign to create a new pin, and we would see idea pin, pin, and board pop up. That is the old format you can see here on the left side. The new format, you just see pin and board. I have for 2024, spring of 2024, I haven't heard it super recently, but as recently as the winter, I did have people tell me January, February, that they would still see idea pins on their account, or some Pinterest managers would say their client accounts. So I would love to know if you still see idea pins on your account. Let me know in the comments of this episode. That's very interesting. I stopped seeing the ability to specifically select idea pins a long time ago on my account. So I just have pin and board. So that's what it looks like when you're going to create. So now that we have seen that, Pinterest explains too what this looks like when you're actually creating the pins. And one thing that was so nice when they simplified that and just had that all pins, that meant that all of the features we had for idea pins, we now had for standard and video pins, which was really cool because idea pins had unique features when you would create them that the standard and the video pin didn't, such as adding text overlay, adding music, tagging topics. So it was really cool that now we have all of those features for all pins. And so that was one thing that I really appreciated about it, with that all of those features now were available to all pin formats. So you can see here what that looks like when the old format versus the new. So it looks just a little bit different. And once again, I'll share this link. So if you want to read through this, I'm not going to read through it for you. You can see too that there's editing tools, there's stickers. These were the things that we didn't have available before that we had for idea pins. So these were some of the really cool tools, like I already mentioned, as far as the music, the stickers, the text overlay, all that fun stuff. I love this part. As I'm scrolling down, it's just so much easier to understand and see. I'm just a very visual learner. And I also think too that when you can not only hear it, but you can see it, it just makes so much more sense. And so this shows you the feature, what we had then, before we had this all pins, then was the standard pin, the idea pin, and then now. So you can see the different boxes. So the features are underlined under the black box, the gray, the standard pin, an idea pin then, and then the red is now. So you can see as far as media formats, image, video, or mix. So that was really cool for idea pins because we hadn't seen that before, where you could mix media with standard video together. So now you can do image, video, or mix under all pins. The aspect ratio, so standard pins was flexible. Idea pins were longer. So instead of the 2:3 ratio or 1000 by 1500, they were a little bit longer. I want to say it was 1080 by 1920 was the specific pixels, or 9 by 16. And so now this is flexible as well under all pins. External link. Remember, I told you that idea pins do not have a link. You can see that that's why there's an X through that. Now we have a link for all pins, which makes business owners marketing on Pinterest much happier. I know I mentioned this already. Once again, standard pins, you didn't have the ability to tag topics. Under all pins, now we can. Paid partnerships, same thing. We can do that for all pins now. We couldn't for standard pins before. Pin scheduling, you could for standard, but not for idea pins. Now we can do that for all pins. And this is what we're going to look at inside Tailwind and how they have that update. And then the editing tools. So the text overlay, music, audio, drawing, stickers. You couldn't do that on standard pins before. And you could on idea pins, obviously, but now we have that for both. So this is really just a fantastic update. And I love how this was visually laid out. So once again, I will link that in the comments of this video. So if you want to read this from creators.pinterest.com, the new pin format update, you can. And this was August 25th of 2023. So that was a little bit ago. So I do like to share this though, because I think it's something that is a little confusing to people. And even though it was a little bit ago, this simplified pin format, this is a new update for Tailwind. So I wanted to give you the background, kind of the history, what this means and looks like on Pinterest. And now let's take a look at Tailwind. So if you want to actually read the article, what is a simplified pin, then you can read that. And I will link this as well, this article from Tailwind, what is a simplified pin. But rather than read this to you, because you can do that on your own if you would like to, I am actually going to show you what this looks like on Tailwind now when you go to schedule a pin. And the good news is it doesn't really change anything for you per se. It's just something that you can toggle on or off, and it just makes it that much easier. So here I am inside my Tailwind. I have this pin. I'm not actually going to schedule this out. This was scheduled out a while ago, but I did upload this to my drafts because I wanted to give you an example. So I'm going to click on this as if I'm scheduling it. And I can see my pin title, my pin description, the pin image alt text. It says that that is optional. That is something that I would recommend including. And if you are wondering how to utilize the ghostwriter, that is Tailwind's AI, and that helps you write keyword optimized titles and descriptions. I actually do have a YouTube episode about how to utilize that, and I will make sure to link that in this episode as well, so that if you want to watch that video, you can learn more about that, because I'm not going to
explain that right now. You can update URL so you have the correct link, obviously. Here, when you scroll down, it's under pin destination. You are going to see the update. This says Simplified Pin. If you click on the information or hover over that, it will tell you what that means. It says Pinterest new default is a simplified pin format. So I have it toggled off, but it actually is essentially defaulted to being toggled on, meaning that it's just going to do that for you automatically. So if you want it off, you can toggle it off, but it is their recommendation to have that on. So that's why it's the default. So this allows you to combine the best of standard image and video pins and idea pins. Disabling this switch will publish your pin as a standard pin. So I would leave that to toggled on. And actually, as I'm saying this, whoop, there we go. I'm like, of course, I'm giving an example for a YouTube episode and it's not letting me toggle it on. So there, it's toggled on now. And you can see that, that it doesn't really make any changes as far as when you toggle it on and off, but it's just something that's recommended. And then if you click the learn more, it will take you to that update as far as, and that's really cool too, that they're linking that to Pinterest as far as what that means with that simplified pin format. So I would just leave it toggled on. So then no matter what you're uploading, it's going to be properly optimized and formatted for Pinterest. So it's just making our life that much easier. And once again, we used to not be able to schedule idea pins. So when I would create idea pins, I would do a lot of repurposed content. I found that when I repurposed video content from Instagram and TikTok, they did so well as idea pins, and that really exploded my account. And it really stunk that I couldn't schedule them because there was all this manual labor, and I was really publishing a lot of video content because it was performing so well. And so I would really try to publish one a day, but to go into a Pinterest account and do that every single day, that's a lot of work. And so now I can download and repurpose video content, obviously that I know will perform well or would really make sense to use on Pinterest. And if you're wondering about repurposing social media content and you're thinking in your brain, hey, how do I know what would perform well? You're saying that you knew it was going to perform well. How did you know that? I do have another episode about repurposing content from social media for Pinterest, because definitely not everything you're posting on social media is going to translate well to Pinterest. It is a search engine. There's also a lot of trending music and different things on social media that you can't then publish on Pinterest because that would be violating copyrights. So all those things, if you want to watch that YouTube episode about repurposing content, then I will make sure to link that in this episode as well. So I have lots of resources for you, but that is so helpful that now I can take that video content and I can schedule that out on Tailwind. And I cannot even tell you how much easier that makes my life. It makes me so happy you don't even know. And I can do that for my clients because they have amazing video content. And when they have really educational, helpful tutorials, tips, hacks, those things perform so well on Pinterest and they're sharing that on social media. And I don't want that to go to waste. I want that. It takes some time to create video content, obviously. So I want that content that they worked hard to create to work for them on Pinterest as well. So if you want to check out that YouTube episode, like I mentioned, I will link that as well. So there's lots of resources in this episode. I hope you found this helpful. I am a huge fan of Tailwind. It's really helped me and my clients, and that consistency is key. So I really feel that there's way more pros versus cons when you're thinking about using a scheduler. I would say one of the biggest cons to using a scheduler is it can encourage lazy pinning behaviors and tactics. And of course, if you're not following best practices, you're not going to see results. So as long as you're following best practices, I think Tailwind's a no-brainer. And if you want to try Tailwind, I will make sure to share that affiliate link as well within the description of this episode as well. So let's go ahead and wrap up today's episode.
I hope you found this episode helpful, and it really gave you more information about using Tailwind, the pros, the cons, and what this can mean for your Pinterest marketing strategy. I would love for you to like this episode. Let me know in the comments what questions you have, maybe even other topics you'd like to see me cover in the future in regards to marketing on Pinterest or even becoming a Pinterest manager. And be sure to check out those other episodes that I referenced and those will be linked in the description of this episode. So I can't wait to see you soon in next week's episode. Bye for now.